I'm going to be honest with you. Not only is America not okay, but I am not okay. Today has been one of those Mondays, not like the normal, drudging through, not wanting to start a new week, but has been one of those days where you realize that regardless of how much you are trying not to be changed by this moment, that we are all indeed changed. That this odd numbness that I am feeling today is part of the ability to try and make sense out of nonsense, but also try and cope with the deep overwhelm that is this moment. So, this show today is going to be very honest, not as if there are shows when I'm not, but generally I try and just stick to what the headlines are and not necessarily unpack the feeling that is coming along with the headlines. But the videos that I've seen, the headlines that I've gone through all day for all of my shows has me feeling utterly and completely numb. And that's not a good feeling to have. So, if you are ready for the rest of today, let's get into it, dear friends. I'm glad that Damnation is here. It is time for the Danielle Moodie Show. Let's go. So many people have known that the image of an upside down American flag has, in history, symbolized distress. Sailors used it at one point in time to be able to signal for help and that their ship was in distress. Over the last couple of years, um, the Republican rabid MAGA crowd has taken this symbol and reappropriated it, as they do with everything, to symbolize the fact that America is in distress because of our liberal ideas and our ideas of progressivism. And I am using it today um, because I realize America is not okay. And largely, none of us are really okay. When the Oscars were going on, there was a meme that was going around that said that we should all get an Oscar for pretending that everything is normal. And I think that while I say, and I do believe that it is important to find joy and it is important to connect with family and community for spiritual nourishment and emotional nourishment, I don't think that we can pretend anymore that we are not experiencing both the emotional and physical manifestations of deep overwhelm, of deep distress. And even for those that say, well, I'm not watching the news, I'm not participating, I have opted out, it still seeps in. And I don't know why this particular Monday is harder than others that I have had over the last 56 days or however long we have been living in this MAGA America. But, I spent the weekend celebrating, a birthday and, being with my family and trying to, have joy and enjoy each other. But then it's like you come back in to reality on a Monday and you see all of the things that happened over the weekend that are absolutely and totally fucking traumatic. And so even our desire to opt out is just us trying to find ways to protect ourselves. But the change in all of us is happening. For me today, it is this deep numbness. Like when you hit your toe or there's like a hammer to something, toe, finger, or what have you. And there's like initially the shock of like the pain, your mind registering, oh, holy shit, I just hurt myself. But then there is like the numbness that comes in because the pain is so great, it like transcends into numbness. And that's where I currently feel myself, where I am like the pain is so deep, the images are so real and resonant, the stories are so heartbreaking that the only response that my body and mind are having in this moment is numbness. And so I wonder, how we move through knowing that as much as we will hug fur babies, play with children, get ready and prepare for spring all around the country, that everything around us, including us, has and is changing and will continue to do so. So, how do you manage then to hold on to empathy and love and joy and expressions of beauty and art and the things that make us human when you are being inundated and overwhelmed all the time with trauma? Case in point, what happened over the weekend? Well, Donald Trump and his regime deported 250 Venezuelan people to El Salvador's brutal prison system. Donald Trump exercised a zombie law, the Alien Enemies Act. From what century, you ask? The 18th century, where this act was used during times of war to be able to deport whomever the government sees as a threat. No law needs to have been broken. No criminal activity or evidence thereof needs to be seen. It's essentially a vibe. I don't like you, and I don't want you here, and I have the power to make you go away. Now, Donald Trump and his regime will tell you that these people are criminals and parts of gangs. We would have no fucking idea because none of them went through due process. We have no idea what these people were picked up for other than having to be immigrants and undocumented. And now they have been carted off despite the judgment that came down from a federal judge who said that we're stopping these deportations. These people are in the United States, which means that we adhere to due process. Well, Donald Trump said, I don't really give a fuck. I don't care what the courts are saying. The planes are in the air, and no, I'm not turning them around. So, the question that I asked earlier on Democracy Ish with Waj was the laws are only good as those that are willing to abide by them. So, if you have an entire regime that is now saying, I don't actually care what it is that you are saying, and you can't make me do anything. You have your what? Your court officers? What are they going to do? Right? Are you going to go and arrest us for what? What are the grounds? What happens when people defy court orders? Well, normally when individuals defy court orders, they're thrown in jail. What happens when an entire administration decides to defy court orders? Well, guess what? You cease being an administration, and now you are exactly what I have been calling you, a regime. Because you see, autocrats and dictators have no need for a court system. Whatever it is that they use as their courts is really a sham, but it is a pageant or a theater for them to be able to prosecute their dissenters. That's what the court of law is used for in dictatorships and autocracies. It's not to hold anyone that is in power accountable. And that's what our rule of law in the United States was. That's what it was for. So now you have the border czar, Tom Homan, who says, I don't care what the judges think. I'm sorry, what? The border czar said, I don't care what the judges think. Fill another plane, fill another plane, fill another plane. Trump's border czar Tom Homan on Monday doubled down on the decision to defy a court order that barred the deportation of alleged Venezuelan gang members. Why it matters: the White House's decision to disregard a federal judge's order has set up a legal battle that could make its way to the Supreme Court and define the limits of Trump's deportation powers. But here's the thing, again, what makes us believe that if the Supreme Court decides with the lower court that Donald Trump does not have the authority to deport these people without due process, what are they going to use as their enforcement tools other than what? A stern warning? But this is Donald Trump going before the same court that gave him unlimited power. When a president does it, it's not illegal. And what is he able to do? Pardon, pardon, pardon away. to anyone who will face any type of pushback if, in fact, we ever get back to a place in any of our lifetimes when there is some semblance of democracy that is left. The thing that I said today on Blue Sky was this. To be clear, we have no idea who the U.S. just deported because they weren't afforded due process. So excuse me for not taking the word of who is or isn't a criminal when this administration just freed the Tate brothers who were on trial for rape and sex trafficking. Oh, and by the way, one of Donald Trump's faith advisors also recently arrested on rape charges. So you have these people, these criminals, these deviants are the ones that are telling us who these people are that they have just shuffled out of the country and put into the hands of some type of mercenary government. We don't know these people's names. We don't know where they were. But now we know that they are literally gone forever, never to be heard from or seen again. And this was the display, the propaganda that Donald Trump put on. What the fuck is this? Those are your tax dollars at work putting on some type of Hollywood theatrical presentation for whom exactly? Why would you need that many supposed military and police people with drone cameras and pictures that are being taken? Again, we don't know who these people are. All we know is that Donald Trump and JD Vance and Tom Homan are the ones that are telling us that they are criminals. Show me the fucking evidence. Because if they're actually criminals, then of course people in the United States would say, yes, if they're criminals and they've done criminal deeds here, and I mean like hard criminal deeds, not hopping a fucking turnstile in a subway or shoplifting. I'm talking about murder, rape, bribery, kidnapping. But you see, they can't offer any of those things up because it's not real. Just as everything that they are putting on here is not real. You're showing me tattoos on someone's back. Do you know how many people in this country have tattoos? And so for folks who continue to say, oh, you know, we're getting rid of the criminals. We're getting rid of, as Donald Trump had said, the bad hombres. Really? Does she look like a criminal? Dr. Rasha Alawe? Does she look like a gang member? Or is she a kidney specialist who specializes in kidney transplants, who was a fellow at the Ohio State University Medical School from 2018 to 2010, who was working at Brown University in Providence since July, who, despite having a legal visa and passport, was detained at Boston Logan International Airport when she returned to the United States following a visit in Lebanon with her family. She was held and detained at the airport and then deported to Paris. Is she a criminal? Here legally, has the visas, the passports to show for it, doesn't matter. They said that she had pictures on her phone. Because again, pictures, unless it's child pornography or a murder, isn't a fucking crime. But it is in these new United States. The deportation of a 10-year-old cancer patient. Bad hombre? The deportation and persona non grata of a South African ambassador. Another gang member? No. Just somebody that disagrees with Donald Trump and MAGA. And so is no longer welcome as an ambassador in the United States and was thrown out of the country. Mahmoud Khalil, right now, sitting in a detention center in Louisiana for no other reason than protesting what the ICC has called a genocide that is taking place in Israel. Folks, these are not accidents. And that propaganda video is the new state TV, which Donald Trump, by the way, has also launched over the weekend. The authority on all things news. Voice of America. This is autocracy. We're not sliding into it. We're not broaching it. It is here. It has arrived. It is not on our doorstep. It is in our house. It is in the walls. It is on the TV. It is on our phones. It is everywhere. Donald Trump is making an example of Columbia University, Johns Hopkins University, Georgetown University, cutting funding, threatening those students of never being able to get jobs anywhere. And even though Columbia decided to throw them Mahmoud Khalil and others, they still got their fucking funding cut. Even though they decided to betray their students and their trust. Oh, I'm certain that they didn't return the tuition dollars, though, that they paid out for degrees that have been rescinded. You see, all of these places think that somehow, if they just follow what it is that this regime is saying, then they will be safe. They will be spared. I don't know how many times we have to say, no one is safe. And also for the person that just said that, oh, she overstayed her visa. No, the fuck she did not. Her visa expires in 2027. Is it 2027 yet? Did when we sprung ahead, did we spring ahead in years as well? Let's move on. This is Paul Dans. Do you all know who Paul Dans is? Paul Dans is one of the main architects of Project 2025, who was unceremoniously fired when the rest of society began to catch up to what many of us in independent progressive media have been talking about for the last 2 years, which was that Project 2025, if implemented, would be the end of America as we know it. When Donald Trump tried to distance himself and say, I don't know anything about Project 2025, I've never even read it. I don't even know who Paul Dans is. His followers and those that only pay attention right before an election believed him. They believed him and they decided to roll the dice, not only on their own lives, but on all of ours as well. What has Paul Dan said recently? The architect of Project 2025 is ready for his victory lap. Beyond my wildest dreams. So, in an interview, his first since the presidency began, Dans effectively confirmed what Democrats were saying all along, and Trump himself denied. There is really almost no difference between Project 2025 and what Trump was planning all along and is now implementing. And if the White House were to call, he'd be glad to get back on the team. Because, he took one for the team and was fired in the performance of a lifetime where Donald Trump told America that I don't know what Project 2025 is. My plan is whatever, or a concept of a plan. And Dan said, when asked about how Project 2025 is going, he said, quote, it's actually way beyond my wildest dreams. It's not going to be the easiest road to hoe going forward. The deep state is going to get its breath back. But the way that they've been able to move and upset the orthodoxy and at the same time really capture the imagination of the people, I think portends a great 4 years. A great 4 years for whom? For the Make America White Again crowd? For the cis, hetero, toxic, misogynist racists? Who is it making America? Who is the next 4 years going to be great for? We're still counting days over here. And this country is utterly devastated. Distress signals going off in every corner of this country. So who is it going to be wonderful for? Because those that are going to be hardest hit by Donald Trump's tariff war are in red states, the people that voted for him, the farmers and the factory workers and the automotive industry, the people who thought that they weren't part of the deep state, they worked for the Park Service. Why would they be fired from their jobs who are now on the unemployment line? Or what about those that have their children, like 90% of Americans, in public schools? Or what about the majority of people that receive SNAP benefits and Medicare are in red states? So, who, Paul Dans, is it going to be great for? What Waj talked about earlier today on Democracy Is, she said, you know what is going to happen, which is already beginning? The great American brain drain, where the best and the brightest no longer come here. Because what opportunities are they being given? Not to research freely, not to live here freely. They're giving a visa one day and then it's yanked back the next. They're not going to come here to build lives and research and portfolios. No. Also, those that have the means, they won't be sending their children to hollowed out public schools. They'll probably be sending them abroad to boarding schools elsewhere to get the kind of education that will allow them to be competitive, because the education that they're going to get here is probably going to be to the extent of spelling MAGA and reciting the January 6th anthem as the new national anthem. There is going to be no education in these United States, not ones that have anything to do with critical thinking, not anything that is going to prepare future generations to be globally competitive. You're going to learn that white men are great, have always been. They invented everything, they own everything, and that is it. How is that building up future generations for success by just, oh, I don't know, erasing facts and lying to them? But if they wanted to slow down the pace of immigration into this country, not only are the workers not coming, right? Those that work in the fields and produce our produce, tend to the farms and factories, not only are they not coming because they are being turned into criminals and carted off to God knows where, but those in the elite, higher economic classes, they ain't coming here either. So who will be left? You know, it's I don't even know what to say anymore, to be honest, cuz today I'm just like in a space where even if, like I said, Elon Musk had his hands in this past election, the fact is that 80 million people still willingly voted for Donald Trump. And I am already tired of seeing the articles and the news stories of people that are like, woe is me. I didn't know he was going to come for me. I thought he was only going to go for the black and the brown folks over there, or the trans person that's hiding in a closet somewhere as some big boogeyman. Like, I didn't realize he was going to come for me. I'm tired of those fucking stories already. Because when people tried to tell you the truth, you told us that we had Trump delusion syndrome. That how dare we imagine a world where all people have access to quality health care, clean water, clean air, and a robust education. How crazy of us to think that way, that America could actually function like a modern democracy, like our counterparts, but we don't and haven't. And now we certainly will not. Again, not in my lifetime. So, right now, we have all been asking ourselves over the past several weeks, where the fuck are the Democrats? What are they doing? Where is the opposition? Quote, among the American public overall, the Democratic Party's favorability rating stands at just 29%, a record low in CNN's polling dating back to 1992. Because Americans have no faith in a Democratic Party that has shown its full ass over the last several weeks. Namely, that waste of space, Senator Chuck Schumer, who decided alongside 8 Democrats and 1 independent that he was going to vote alongside Republicans to pass their draconian budget. Oh, because we have to keep government moving. And you know who appreciated that so much? The markets on Friday. That showed a sign of a boost. Because Chuck Schumer gave more of a shit about his donors and his portfolio than he did about democracy and using whatever leverage that we have in order to make things fucking difficult for Republicans to do. No. Instead, Chuck Schumer just laid fucking down and said, you can do with the country what you want. So, of course, now there are rumblings about a primary and him being replaced and new leadership needing to come in. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is polling higher than any other Democrat. But the funny thing is, folks, in what election is he being primaried in? Because for these people that think that midterms are happening, what evidence do you have that they will? This is the amount of damage that Donald Trump has done in just over 50 some odd days. I literally cannot even imagine. And that's my failure of imagination right now, because I can't even project myself into 2026. Because all I see is darkness. But for all of these people that are like, oh, yeah, we'll get them next time. The 2024 election was your next time. And whether meddled with or not, there was still 80 million Americans that said that Donald Trump was their guy. It's wild. It is wild to me. And right now, Chucky has postponed his book tour amid backlash to voting with Republicans. Many Democratic activists, desperate for their leaders to stand up to Trump, have been staging protests outside of Senator Chuck Schumer's office, his home, and calling for his resignation. And I couldn't help but think to myself, who goes on a book tour in the middle of a coup? And I know Hakeem Jeffries did it back in February. Like, these people really think that now is the time for a book tour? I couldn't think of a worse time. If you want to be going city to city and state to state, maybe do what Bernie Sanders is doing, what Tim Walz is taking on, and actually going into red districts that aren't holding town halls and talking to the American fucking people about what the fuck is going on here. Not going on a fucking book tour with a book that no one is going to read because you're an asshole. And I hope it fucking tanks. I do not want these people being able to casually go about their lives and for us to forget what it is that they have done to further sell us out. I don't want them eating comfortably in restaurants. I don't want them sleeping with ease. If I can't sleep, you sure as fuck shouldn't be able to sleep. Because other than turning on a microphone and sharing what information I don't have the same power that Chuck Schumer has. So if I am not sleeping well at night because I am terrified about the future of this fucking country, you shouldn't be able to sleep either. If I feel sick to my stomach on a regular basis about the innocent people that are being criminalized and deported out of this country, never to be seen and heard from again, being kidnapped by our fucking government, I don't think that you should be able to casually enjoy a nice little meal. I don't think that you should be able to do like JD Vance and just walk into the Kennedy Center and think that you're going to have a good old fucking time. I think that your life should be fucking disrupted the way that everybody else's has been. I am just outdone today. It took everything in me because some days, folks, I have more energy, I have more light than others. Today is not that day. Today, all I think about are the people that are never going to see their families and their loved ones again. All I think about is the fact that Mahmoud Khalil may not see the birth of his child. All I think about is what happens to Dr. Alloway's home and apartment and her patients that she was waiting to see for liver transplants and kidney transplants, and what happens to them now? Her specialty may have been their only saving grace at life. I keep thinking about all of the Khalils and the Allaways to come. I keep thinking about all of the camps that are going to be filled with quote unquote enemies of the state. I keep thinking about all of us being attached to polygraph machines and asking about our allegiance to Donald Trump and having to discuss what books we have read and what art exhibits that we have gone to and who are we speaking to and who are we willing to rat out. This is not 1984. This is not the movie Minority Report. This is real life that is happening right now in these United States. And Chuck Schumer sees fit to go on a book tour. They are living out their wildest dreams of a white nationalist, autocratic country. And our elected officials are nowhere to be found. I just, what is to stop them for coming for us next? Newsflash, absolutely fucking nothing. Because what Donald Trump has just exhibited with resurrecting an 18th century law that was used to intern Japanese Americans in this country, that same law can be used on anyone because they don't like their vibe, because you were spotted at a protest, because you now must be an enemy of the state. If you are not pledging your allegiance and your loyalty to Donald Trump above all else, then you are an enemy. And they are going to purge this country one way or another of everyone that they deem a threat. And so for the folks that said, I'm not a criminal, so they won't deport me. I have my green card, but I voted for Donald Trump. Oh, I was a naturalized citizen, but I voted for Donald Trump. I was born here. No one is safe. So let me close out today with a story that I wrote on my Substack. And if you have not subscribed yet to my Substack, The Damn Digest, I highly recommend. One, because it's a way to continue to support independent media, but two, I put up different content. And going to be exploring different content and doing collabs with the different creators in the coming weeks and months, right? Because I'm trying to reach as many people in as many different places as possible. And for those that always look for an opportunity to support me on a monthly basis, you can do so through Substack. You can also do so through Patreon. Um, and if you have not yet liked and subscribed to this here channel, please do so. Because again, trying to grow these numbers, and it is an uphill battle when you are a tiny station. But here is a story that I came across and wrote yesterday. Kim Kardashian, Tesla robots, and the commodification of fascism. Apparently, even an outright coup needs an influencer. What do I mean by that? Well, another thing happened over the weekend, and that would be Kim Kardashian doing a Tesla advertisement, a Tesla campaign fit with Cybertrucks and robots to her 358 million followers. Let that sink in for a moment. Kim Kardashian has more followers on Instagram than people living in the United States. Okay? Whether or not you like the Kardashians is not the point. The point is that she is the influencer and their family are the influencers that initially started out, right, hawking other people's shit, getting paid a percentage of that, but then realized that their true power was in their ability literally to sell anything. So they decided to begin creating their own products and their own lines, whether it be perfumes or handbags or lip pump or whatever it was, or tequila or jeans or smoothies or vitamins, that their name attached to anything sells. It is why they are multi-billionaires, because of their ability to turn their once little reality TV show into an enormous empire. Because everything that they touch turns to gold. So now let me bring your attention to this gold Tesla robot that Kim Kardashian is hugged up on. The entire shoot was out of a dystopian fucking nightmare. One of the wealthiest influencers in the country, using her hundreds of millions of followers to showcase that we don't need to protest fascism. We shouldn't be protesting Elon Musk. No, fascism is sexy. And don't you want a piece too? In this piece that I wrote, that is up now on Substack, I make the connection between Elon Musk and how his family made his money literally off the backs of Black people working in their jewel mines in apartheid South Africa that they fled to because the policies that were there were favorable to whites and their ability to amass wealth. And I connect it to Kim Kardashian, who too has been able to build her wealth off of the backs of Black people, injecting her body with all sorts of things to mimic Black features without actually having to deal with any of the messiness, like racism or misogynoir. She was able to date Black men, fuck Black men, and make a sex tape that launches her to fame. If she were any woman of color, or a Black woman at that, do you think that she would have be so revered right now and a part of our lexicon, our culture? No. But she was able to capitalize off of Blackness as a way to catapult her to absolute fame. And since achieving those heights, guess who has since removed her butt implants? Who has began to soften and whiten back her features. Now that she is hit $1 billion status, she doesn't need to perpetrate like she gives a fuck about Black people, even though her children are biracial. She's of the delusion that her wealth will protect them. And just to make sure, what does she find herself with doing now? Aligning with power. You see, folks, everyone loves to believe that the Kardashians are dumb, that just shrug. What is their talent? What is this, that, and the other? Their talent is the ability to commodify every goddamn thing. And in this hyper capitalistic society, that goes a lot further than being able to do a jig or sew a piece of clothing. But what should terrify everyone is that they are no longer hawking stuff, whether it be Skims or perfumes or vitamins or jeans or lip pumping stuff or whatever. No, now they are commodifying fascism. Elon Musk's stock has been circling the drain for weeks. In walks Donald Trump, turning the South Lawn into a Tesla car dealership. And then entering stage right, I give you Kim Kardashian. The fascist influencer. You have to understand all of these pieces. You have to really, truly, folks, be able to understand that MAGA didn't just put their tentacles into politics, that they were not narrow-minded in terms of where their influence needed to be seated in order to grow and spread. You all heard the stories that broke during the election cycle that all of the big MAGA influencers on TikTok were being paid by Russia. They created the hashtag tradwife as a way to soften the allure of misogyny and this idea of turning women back into traditional wives who only aspire to tend to the needs of their husbands and their families. That was a campaign, folks. They spread their tentacles in the gaming industry to corner the market and influence around young white men. Studying their rage and their disconnect and weaponizing it in order to build their incel armies. Then they took over media, where every week, right-wing media has over 100 million impressions in comparison to progressive media, which reaches somewhere between 30 and 50 million. They went into wrestling. They went into ultimate fighting. And now they've taken over not one of, the biggest influencer family in the world. So when I say that not only have Democrats not shown up to this fight, we're also about 40 years behind the plans that they have activated and the platforms that they have infiltrated. So when I talk to you all about the importance of storytelling, that story and narrative is how you actually reach people and connect with them. MAGA's known this for generations. So while Democrats were so busy crossing their T's and dotting their I's and putting together their PowerPoint presentation of facts, MAGA was selling people a new vision of America, one that they could be centered in. And they fell for it. And now, to keep that lie going, you double and triple down with an influencer campaign. Don't you want to be like me? Don't you want to have what I have? We are in it now, friends. It is not impending. We're not sliding. We are here. America is not okay. I am not okay. And I'm sure many of you are not okay. We cannot allow ourselves to stay in a place of numbing. We have got to find community, family, things that allow us to live out our convictions and live to fight another day. Whatever that fighting looks like for you. But we are in it. Fascism is here. It isn't just about keeping our heads buried in the sand in the hopes that we don't come face to face, because we already have. The only safety that we have is in community and is in our resistance. That is it for me today, dear friends, on the Danielle Moodie Show. I know that it was a heavy one, and I can't apologize for it because you don't come here for me to sugarcoat things. As Waj said earlier today on Democracy Ish, which is up now if you have not watched it yet, is that when the comet is coming, our job is to point it out. Not scream and say that it's coming, but to say it's coming, and do you want to prepare? So I can't lie and I can't pretend and I can't sugarcoat that everything is going to be okay, because it's not. It's not okay right now. But I do know that the things that we decide to do in this moment, moving forward, is going to lay the paths and the foundation for where this country ends up. So do you want to be one of the light workers? Do you want to be one of the change makers? It's up to you to decide. As always, dear friends, I thank you so much for your donations, for showing up here, for being in community, and continuing to um, be here as we navigate this together. As always, thank you to our moderators that have been holding down the chat, that do so every single day. I appreciate you all so very much. And for keeping out the trolls to the best of your abilities. For those that have given donations today, thank you so much. Each dollar that you give, trust me, goes a very long way um, in keeping this channel and myself afloat. So thank you. Power to the people and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane, and in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, do stay safe. I will be back here tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. Be well.